That was Max Verstappen in 2021, the same year GP screamed with joy for him in that garage. Not a car, not a strategist, not even Christian Horner. An engineer. The voice in his headset through more than 70 race wins and 4 world championships. His name is Gianpiero Lambiase. Everyone in Formula One just calls him GP. And this year, 5 years after Verstappen made that promise, GP announced he's leaving. This is the story of the partnership the paddock calls Verstappen's marriage. Why it's ending, and why the man chosen to replace him has been standing 3 feet away the entire time, and almost got away too. To understand what Red Bull is about to lose, you need to understand who Gianpiero Lambiase actually is. He started, like so many of the best engineers in this sport, far from the spotlight, as a data engineer at Jordan Grand Prix in 2005. He worked his way up through the paddock, becoming a race engineer during the team's years as Force India, learning the sport from telemetry sheets and pit walls long before anyone knew his name. In 2015, he joined Red Bull. His first driver was Daniel Kvyat. Then, in May 2016, an 18-year-old was promoted from Red Bull's junior team mid-season. Nobody knew yet what they had. His name was Max Verstappen. By 2024, Lambiase had taken on an even bigger job inside Red Bull. Head of racing, overseeing race strategy across both cars, all while remaining Verstappen's personal race engineer. Most people in this sport only do one of those jobs. He was doing both. 10 years, 4 world championships, and more than 70 race victories later. Lambiase and Verstappen are the longest-standing driver-engineer partnership on the current grid. People in the paddock don't call them colleagues. They call them Formula One's old married couple, and it's not hard to see why. Back in 2021, years before any of this, Verstappen was asked how important GP was to him. His answer left no room for interpretation. "I told him that I only work with him. As soon as he quits, I'll quit too." At the time, it sounded like devotion from a driver at the start of his prime. Nobody thought it would ever actually be tested. GP, for his part, has always talked about the bond differently, as something almost impossible to repeat. "I don't think it's fair to another driver if we try to replicate what I've done with Max since May 2016, he said. "I see this as something incredibly special. I don't think something like this will happen again." He said something else too, almost daring anyone to feel sorry for either of them. "Nobody is irreplaceable," Lambiase said. "There's no way that if I walk out that door tomorrow, Max's Formula One career is over." 2 people describing the same 10 years, both certain it was once in a lifetime. This spring, McLaren came calling, not for a driver, not for a strategist, for GP, offering him a role as chief racing officer, working under Andrea Stella at Red Bull's biggest rival. His contract runs until 2028, though he could step back from the seat sooner. Verstappen found out before most of the paddock did. And when GP asked him, almost for permission, Verstappen didn't hesitate. "Everyone has goals and dreams, right?" Verstappen said. "I can't say, no, I want to keep you here forever. In the end, we all want to grow, and everyone has their own ambitions." It's the closest thing to a goodbye Formula One has heard in years, and it leaves Red Bull with a question it hasn't had to answer in a decade. Who replaces the irreplaceable? Verstappen admitted as much himself. "The general understanding that we have with each other and the chemistry works really well," he said. "That's very rare, I think, in racing. You don't see that often, a driver and engineer that gel that well together. That's something I'll have to try and find again." Here's what most fans don't know. Red Bull didn't have to look far for GP's replacement. He was already standing next to him. Tom Hart joined Red Bull in 2012, after an earlier career as a political researcher, about as far from a Formula One garage as it gets. He worked his way up through the team quietly, the same way GP once had. In January 2020, he was named Max Verstappen's performance engineer. He wouldn't be the first performance engineer to make that jump. At Mercedes, Marcus Dudley went from being Lewis Hamilton's performance engineer to George Russell's race engineer in 2023. Since then, Hart has been in the garage for every single one of Verstappen's 4 world championships. Not the voice on the radio, but the man just behind GP, shaping the car, the strategy, the numbers, race after race. But here's the part almost nobody saw coming. Late in 2025, around the same time GP's McLaren move was taking shape, Tom Hart had already agreed to leave Red Bull. His destination, Williams. His new role, race engineer to Alex Albon. For a moment, Red Bull was about to lose both engineers out of the same garage, in the same year. It took a direct intervention from team principal Laurent Mekies, negotiating personally with Williams boss James Vowles to unwind the agreement. Hart stayed, and the timing tells you everything. Red Bull didn't just want to keep a good engineer, they needed him for the seat that was about to open up in Verstappen's ear. The plan is already in motion. Hart is expected to officially take over as Verstappen's race engineer from the start of the 2027 season. But Red Bull isn't waiting that long to start the transition. He's already had a taste of the seat, race engineering Isaac Hadjar during a filming day at Silverstone. And the plan, reportedly, is for Hart to take over from GP on the radio at selected race weekends before the end of this season, easing both men into a swap neither one asked for. Which means, before Hart ever officially takes over, Verstappen may already hear his voice on the radio mid-race. A trial run for one of the most watched relationships in the sport, playing out live, with no announcement at all. There's one more thing hanging over all of this. Nobody actually knows if Max Verstappen will be in that seat when the handover is finished. Buried in Verstappen's own Red Bull contract is a clause. If he's outside the top 2 in the championship at the summer break, he's free to leave for 2027. After a string of mechanical failures this season, that became mathematical fact. Heading into the break this year, Verstappen sits 6th in the championship, nowhere near the top 2. He has until October to tell Red Bull whether he's staying. Red Bull, reportedly, has already offered him millions just to sign the clause away. And the team he's been linked to most seriously, McLaren, the same team that just hired GP. Which means the man who built 4 championships with Verstappen might not just be leaving Red Bull. He might be waiting for him on the other side. And GP isn't the only one who's made that move. Technical director Rob Marshall left Red Bull for McLaren in 2024. Sporting director Will Courtney followed him. GP is simply the latest name in a pattern Red Bull can't seem to stop. Its own people, quietly rebuilding its biggest rival. But here's what makes Tom Hart's promotion different from an ordinary reshuffle. It doesn't depend on the answer. Even if Verstappen leaves Red Bull, Hart still becomes the team's race engineer. Just, potentially, for somebody else. Red Bull isn't just replacing a man, they're protecting a system. Whatever happens to their world champion, the headset gets passed on. Back in 2021, Max Verstappen said something he probably never expected to be tested, that his career was tied to one man's voice in his ear. That man is leaving. Not this year, not suddenly, but it's happening. And the man chosen to replace him isn't a stranger, isn't a gamble, isn't a name nobody's heard of. He's been standing in that garage since 2012. He nearly left for Williams before Red Bull pulled him back at the last possible moment. Gianpiero Lambiase built 4 world championships with Max Verstappen, and he's walking away calling it something that will never happen again. Tom Hart has to prove it can. He inherits not just a headset, but a decade of trust that nobody quite knows how to hand over. Even Max's father, Jos Verstappen, never shy with an opinion, has already made peace with it. "We've known about it for a while," he said. "It's a huge opportunity for him, and we understand that. We told him, you have to go for it. Grab it with both hands." Was Verstappen's promise ever really about one man? Or was it about whatever Red Bull builds around him next? You decide.